This video will give you 7 to 10 marks in your CBSE Class 10th board exam. Today we are diving into Chapter 7, How do Organisms Reproduce? Before we start with how do organisms reproduce, let us answer the question, why do organisms reproduce? Reproduction is not a life essential process like respiration or digestion, yet it occurs in nature. What could be the reason for it? Well, for two main reasons, organisms reproduce. That is, one, continuity of species. Every species ensure that they do not become extinct. Two, variation, which is the basis of evolution. This helps with creating organisms a little different in every generation to survive the changing environment. Now, let us understand why variation is important. We are all very similar to our parents, but not exactly identical because the basic design of human body always remains intact at every generation, which helps the species continue. But a little variation in the next generation can help the species survive better for the environmental changes that occur. Let us take an example. A species of bacteria in the polar region create a next generation with slight variation that can withstand a little higher temperature. These new generation bacteria can survive the temperature rise in the poles during the global warming session. This helps in continuation of species in the changing environment with the help of variation, which is the basis of evolution. Now that we understood why organisms reproduce and what is the importance of variation, let us understand what does reproduction mean at a cellular level. Let us consider an example where an architect has to make a building, but the building is identical to something that he has made 5 years before. So what would an architect do is he would use the same blueprint that he had made for the prior building 5 years before and make changes to the blueprint to make the new building. Our body also follows a similar approach, where our body design blueprint is in our DNA. This DNA is compressed as chromosomes and is present in the nucleus of every cell, which contains genetic information of our basic body design. So, for reproduction, using biochemical changes, the DNA replicates itself. So do the other parts of the cell like nucleus, cytoplasm, etc. to help the new DNA function. Thus, we create two cells from one cell. Now, how identical the child cell is from the parent cell depends on the efficiency of the DNA replication process. A little difference between the parent and the child forms the basis of evolution, which is variation. Let us now understand the types of reproduction that are present. There are two types of reproduction: asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, there is only one parent involved. There are no formation of germ cells or gametes. We will understand this better in a while. In sexual reproduction, there are two parents and there is formation of gametes. Now let us deep dive into asexual reproduction first and understand the different types of asexual reproduction that are present. Starting with fission. Fission is of two types. First, binary fission, which basically means that a cell splits into two cells. And this can occur in any plane, such as in the case of amoeba and other protozoa, or can occur at a definite orientation, like in the case of leishmania. In the case of multiple fission, one cell simultaneously splits or divides into multiple daughter cells. This occurs in the malarial parasite Plasmodium. Let us now move to the next asexual reproduction, fragmentation. In some multicellular organisms with relatively simple body organization, some simple reproductive methods like fragmentation can work. Spirogyra, for example, simply breaks into smaller pieces upon maturation, and these fragments or pieces grow into new individuals. in asexual reproduction, let us now move to complex multicellular organisms, where the first type of reproduction is regeneration. Regeneration is the ability to give rise to a new individual organism from their body parts. It is carried out by special cells that proliferate when there is a cut being made. This usually occurs in organisms like planaria or lizard, where the organism is capable of growing the tail back and the tail growing back into the organism. However, regeneration is not considered same as reproduction, since most organisms would not normally depend on being cut to be able to reproduce. Moving on to the next kind of asexual reproduction, which is budding. Here, organisms like Hydra use regenerative cells for reproduction in the process of budding. So a bud will develop as an outgrowth due to repeated rapid cell division at one specific site. These buds develop into tiny individual when they are fully mature, they detach from the parent body and become a new individual. Moving on to vegetative propagation. This method is mostly used in plants where parts like the root, stem, leaves develop into new plants under appropriate conditions. It is usually done through the process of layering or grafting in the case of sugarcane, roses, or grapes, where the advantages of this method help in bearing the fruits and flowers earlier in the plant, and it can be used for plants which have lost the capacity to produce seeds such as banana, orange, rose, jasmine, etc. And the child plant is genetically very similar to the parent when generated through vegetative propagation. The next method of asexual reproduction is spore formation, which usually occurs in rhizopus, which has a blob-like stick-like structure that contains spore, which eventually develop into new organism. These spores are covered by thick walls that protect them until they come in contact with another moist surface and begin to grow. This completes all the modes of asexual reproduction. Let us now understand sexual reproduction. Why do we need to go for sexual reproduction? As we all know, sexual reproduction involves two parents. Now, having two parents makes it easier to cause more variation, and it involves two different sets of DNA. It creates a different kind of individual in each generation. Let us see what happens at a cellular level for sexual reproduction. As we all know, every human being has 23 pairs of chromosomes, which in turn mean that we have 46 chromosomes in every cell of our body. Let us consider the number of chromosomes in an organism to be 2n. If this 2n cell would mate with another 2n cell, it would end up giving rise to an organism which would have 4n sets of DNA. And this DNA will not be able to work with the cellular apparatus present. Hence, each parent produces cells called germ cells or gametes, which only have half the set of chromosomes than the parent cell. This is done through the process of cellular division called meiosis. Thus, when the two gametes combine, the individual again has the same set of chromosomes as that of the species, where half of each is given from each parent. These germ cells are of two types. One is large and contains the food, which is usually stationary, and it is conventionally considered to be a female germ cell. And the other germ cell is usually smaller and motile, which is considered to be the male germ cell. When these two combine, they form a zygote, which would have the same set of chromosomes as that of the parent cell, thus keeping the species continued along with creating a variation between the prior generation and the next generation by involving two parents. Let us now see how sexual reproduction occurs in flowering plants. A flowering plant usually contains the following parts: sepals, petals, pistil, and stamen. Pistil and stamen are the reproductive parts of the flower. Pistil is usually the female part of the flower which contains stigma, style and ovary. And stamen is the male part of the flower which contains anther and filament. A flower can contain both the stamen and pistil in the same flower, which is called a bisexual flower like hibiscus or mustard, or it can contain only stamen or pistil like in the case of papaya or watermelon. The anther of the stamen contains pollen grains that are in yellowish color. These pollen grains form the male gamete or the male germ cell that has to fuse with the female germ cell to produce the new individual. The pistil or the female reproductive part contains stigma, which is a sticky surface, a style, and the ovary. The ovary, which is the swollen bottom part of the plant, contains ovules, and each ovule has an egg cell. This egg cell is the female germ cell or female gamete in the case of plants. Now, the pollen needs to be transferred from the stamen to the stigma. If this transfer of pollen occurs in the same flower, it is considered to be as self-pollination. If the pollen is transferred from one flower to another, it is considered as cross-pollination. And this transfer of pollen from one flower to another can be achieved using agents like wind, water, or insects and animals. So once the pollen reaches the stigma of the flower, it creates a pollen tube along the style to reach the ovary and fuse with the ovule which has an egg cell. This fusion of germ cells is called fertilization, and this gives rise to a zygote which is capable of growing into a new plant. After fertilization, the zygote divides several times to form an embryo within the ovule. The ovule develops a tough coat and gradually is converted into a seed. The ovary grows rapidly and ripens to form a fruit. Meanwhile, the petals, sepals, stamen, style, and stigma may shrivel or fall off the plant. The seed contains the future plant or embryo which develops into a seedling under appropriate conditions, and this process is called as germination. Let us now move to sexual reproduction in human beings. The process of sexual reproduction in human beings is something similar to that of plants. It involves two reproductive parts, one male and female, which form the germ cells, and these two germ cells fuse to generate a new individual. To support this process, a couple of changes occur in both male and female bodies at the time of puberty, which are essential for reproduction to occur. As we have seen earlier, these changes are a part of adolescence due to the hormones that are released in male and females. Some of the common changes that occur in both are thickening of hair growing in the armpits and genital region, thinner hair on legs and arms, having an oily skin which develops pimples. Some changes occur specific to each gender, male or female. For example, in male, there is thicker hair on the face, the voice begins to crack, and occasionally the penis becomes enlarged and erect during night or in daydreams. In females, the breast size begins to increase, the nipples become darker, and usually menstruation occurs along this age. All these changes occur slowly over the years of adolescence and can happen at different times for different individuals. Why do these changes occur? Because reproduction involves formation of a new individual, the body prepares itself to make the new individual and take care of it once it is born. Hence, these changes occur to support the process of reproduction. Let us now understand the male reproductive system. The male reproductive system consists of portions which produce the germ cells and other that deliver the germ cells to the site of the fertilization. The formation of germ cells or sperms takes place in testis. This is located outside the abdominal cavity in scrotum because sperm formation requires lower temperature than normal body temperature. This process is regulated by the hormone called testosterone, which also brings about other changes in the time of puberty. Inside the testis, the cells divide through the process of meiosis to generate the germ cells or sperms that contain half the set of chromosomes as that of the parent. These sperms formed are delivered through the vas deferens, which unites with the tube coming from the urinary bladder, the urethra, thus forming a common passage for both sperms and urine. Along the path of vas deferens, glands like prostate and seminal vesicles add their secretions to the sperms so that the sperms are in a fluid which also provide nutrition. Sperms are generally tiny bodies that mainly contain genetical material and a long tail that helps them move towards the female germ cell. Let us now understand the female reproductive system. The female germ cells or eggs are made in the ovaries. They are also responsible for the production of some hormones like estrogen and progesterone, which help in this process and the other changes that occur at puberty. When a girl is born, the ovaries already contain thousands of immature eggs at the time of birth. On reaching puberty, some of these start maturing. One egg is produced every month by one ovary. The egg is carried from the ovary to the womb through a thin oviduct or fallopian tube. These two oviducts unite into an elastic bag-like structure known as the uterus. The uterus opens into the vagina through the cervix. This is the female reproductive system. Let us understand what happens during fertilization. The sperms enter the vaginal passage during sexual intercourse. They travel upwards and reach the oviduct where they encounter the egg. The egg and the sperm merge together, which is called the fertilization, and the fertilized egg becomes a zygote which starts dividing to form a ball of cells or embryo. This embryo is implanted in the lining of the uterus, where they grow and develop organs to become fetus. To support the development of fetus, every month the uterus prepares itself to receive and nurture a growing embryo. And hence the lining of the uterus will thicken and it is richly supplied with blood to nourish the embryo. The embryo gets nutrition from the mother's blood with the help of a special tissue called placenta. This placenta is covered with villi on both the sides, which increases the surface area of absorption for glucose, oxygen, and exchange of waste materials between mother and the embryo, which can help the baby develop. The development of a child inside the mother's body takes approximately 9 months, and the child is born as a result of rhythmic contractions in the muscles of the uterus. Let us see what will happen if the egg is not fertilized. So when the egg is not fertilized, that is, the sperm has not reached the egg that month, the egg lives for about 1 day and then shreds off. Now, since the uterus prepares itself for fertilization every month, that is, develops a thick lining on its uterus wall every month to nourish the incoming embryo, and since there is no embryo, the lining is no longer required, so this lining is slowly breaks down and comes out through the vagina as blood and mucus. This cycle takes place roughly every month and is known as menstruation. It lasts for about 2 to 8 days. Reproductive health. As we have seen, the process of sexual maturation is gradual and it takes place while the general body growth is still going on. Therefore, some degree of sexual maturation does not mean that the body and the mind is ready for the sexual act or having to bring up a child. The sexual act always has the potential to lead to pregnancy, and pregnancy will make major demands on the body and the mind of the woman and man. And if he or she is not ready for it, their health will be adversely affected. Therefore, in many ways, it is devised to avoid pregnancy. These methods are called contraceptive methods. These also help in prevention of diseases that are sexually transmitted, as the sexual act is a very intimate connection of the bodies. So the infections that are sexually transmitted could be bacterial infections such as gonorrhea and syphilis, or viral infections such as warts or HIV/AIDS. Preventing these with the help of contraceptive methods can help in avoiding pregnancy as well as protect from these diseases. So the mechanical contraceptive methods are creating a mechanical barrier so that the sperm and the egg do not reach. Condoms on the penis or small coverings worn on the vagina can serve this purpose. Another category of contraceptives are chemical contraceptives, which are usually taken orally as pills, as they change the hormonal balance of the body, so the egg and sperm do not meet, as the eggs are not released or fertilized. Since these change the hormonal balances, they can cause side effects. Other contraceptive devices such as loop or copper T are placed in the uterus to prevent pregnancy. Again, they can cause side effects due to the irritation in the uterus. There are surgical methods where the vas deferens of the male is blocked or the fallopian tube of the female is blocked to prevent fertilization. Sometimes surgery is used to remove unwanted pregnancies, which is called abortion. This could be misused by people who do not want a particular gender of child. Because of this, by law in India, prenatal sex determination has been prohibited. These are the different ways of reproductive health. This completes the chapter How Do Organisms Reproduce? Hope you have understood the concept in this chapter. Do not forget to like this video, share this video with your classmates, and subscribe to the channel for more such videos. You can find the free notes and worksheet for this chapter in the description or in the comment section.